So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our Find Your Future Fortnight Engineering Employer Panel session number 4. It's really great to see you all here. So before we get started, I'm just going to run through a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get cracking. So the session is being recorded, as you'll have just heard. If you don't wish to appear on camera, then that's absolutely fine. Just keep it turned off. But we would encourage you to use the opportunity to meet the employers, and you know, one of the nice ways to do that is to have your camera on, and so they can see your faces. We do encourage you to use this opportunity to ask our panel lots of questions. So you might want to ask them about their career history, their current role, their company, anything that you can think of like that. And you can use the chat box to submit any questions for the panel during the session, or you can use the raise your hand function as well during the Q&A session after we've had the introductions from our speakers. So today's panel, we've got a really great panel today. We've got Baker Hughes, PA Consulting, and Moy Park, and I won't do any introductions. I'll let those guys introduce themselves shortly, and we are ready to go. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to hand over to, first of all, to Sam. Sorry, I lost my order there. So I'll hand over to Sam. Thank you.
There you go. Sorry, I'm not used to Zoom, but as long as everyone can hear me and see my screen, I'll get started. So yeah, I'm Sam Stoner. I come from Baker Hughes. I'm currently based out in the west of Ireland in Shannon, and it's great to be here today to talk to you all about what we do and what we can offer. So here's a bit about me. To be honest, I really don't like talking about myself, and you're not here to listen about me, so I'll skip through this quick enough. I'm on the Aspire development program on the sales and commercial track based in Europe. There's a lovely picture of me there and characteristics, read them if you want. I didn't write them, to be honest. Hobbies, really like football, enjoy a good hike, which is very lucky at being out here in Ireland. There's a lot of good things to see and do. I love my food as well. So I'll put on that, that quarantine 5 kilos or whatever it was. Bit about my history. I did my undergrad at the University of Liverpool in aerospace engineering, as a Bachelor of Engineer. I then took a year out after realizing that I know I'm an engineering talk, but being a design engineer wasn't for me. So I went out and did a gap year being a language assistant in France. Good experience, something that I'd never really get to do again. And then I decided that I wanted to do something a bit more on the commercial side. So I went back to college, this time in Trinity over in Dublin, to do my management degree. Obviously, you can see from my history, it's a bit mixed. But I wanted to bring together the aerospace engineering and the management, which is where this role at Baker Hughes is pretty perfect. So currently I'm an application engineer. It's a fairly technical role within the commercial team. So as you can see next to it, I'm within commercial operations. So I build quotes for customers, which, when we get into the details of our products, it's really technical. So having that engineering background was a massive boost and a massive help. I'm then involved in global support as well. Massive company, really global team. And there's different aspects that need supporting. And of course, there's some customer contact in there as well. The way it works here, the salesman or salesperson makes the sale. And if there's a lot of technical questions or issues, the customer will often be put in contact with us as well. So it is a customer facing role as well. And so why did I apply to Aspire? Well, firstly, to be challenged. Obviously, my experience, as you can see, isn't very commercial, but I wanted to get into the commercial world. And to do so is a big challenge. So that's one reason I joined. There's so many aspects of the company that you can experience on this program. So I'm currently working within one area that I'll talk about on my next slide, but you can work across different companies within different industries. You can really get a full and wide view of what we do. Also, as an Aspire, you're part of a global network. This is something that's really fantastic about the program. You know, I'm part of now of a team of 55 people on the same track as me. I think there's about 300 Aspires globally across the 8 tracks. Even though it's all over Teams at the minute, you get to feel really close to them. You can be part of committees that organize events and conferences. That's also a fantastic aspect of being an Aspire. And you really learn by doing here. There's a healthy amount of pressure put on you. So you're under pressure in a good way. It forces you to be better. It forces you to learn. And you're doing it by carrying out a job. You know, I've never been an application engineer before, but as I'm doing the job, finding out it's a bit difficult, but you know, there's a good support there to help me get through it. And to be honest, that's really the best way to learn. So now, who is Baker Hughes? Who are Baker Hughes? Well, we're an energy technology company, and we provide solutions for energy and industrial customers worldwide. Operate in over 120 countries, with now actually it's more than 55,000 employees, with our first half 21 revenue being $9.9 billion. Yeah, we average around $20 billion a year. We're a Fortune 150 company. Yeah, a lot of revenue. We design, manufacture, and deliver leading technology solutions for our customers, powered by the industry's only full stream technology portfolio, and enabled by our people and scale. We drive productivity and improve outcomes for ourselves and our customers. And so if we see here, we have the 4 main business areas that we have. So we have oilfield services, known as OFS, oilfield equipment, known as OFE, digital solutions, known as DS, and turbo machinery and process solutions, known as TPS. Now, OFE and OFS, they are the biggest components of our business at the minute. You know, we're historically oil and gas, but oil and gas isn't lasting forever. And part of our forward strategy is, you know, transforming the core of our business into more sustainable industries. So we're investing heavily in the energy transition, you know, hydrogen, alternative energy sources, and within digital solutions, which is where I work. We don't only service oil and gas; we service, you know, aviation, automotive, you know, renewable power gen, any sort of industrial. So we are definitely an energy technology company with a big future ahead of us. And you know, you see there, you know, we have, you know, really big targets, you know, to be net zero by 2050. And there's a good bit of investment going on to be able to achieve that. And not only is that internal, but it's external as well. A lot of the products that we do have are really focused on helping our customers reduce their environmental impact as well, which obviously, as you hear a lot, industrials, oil and gas, there's a lot of scope there to really reduce carbon footprint of these places. So now I'll just talk a little bit more about our Aspire program. So it is a leadership and development program. You know, you are brought on because you're seen as one of the future leaders of the business. So, you know, when we look here, what do you aspire to be? You know, there's a lot of collaboration with customers, because customers really are at the heart of what we do. Customer service is massive for us, especially in the area I work in. We want to be the best. I do think we are really very good. We develop this fantastic technology as well. It really is cutting edge. Whichever track you end up in, you're going to be really at the forefront of technology and what is possible. And so moving on to some of the tracks that we offer, this is a really good mix. So if you're doing engineering and you want to go into engineering, there's opportunities there for you. Be that, you know, more software or more hands-on, like on an oil field. Whether you're a bit like me and you did an engineering degree only to realize you don't want to be a full-on engineer, there's other options. So the HR track, sales and commercial, which is the one I'm on, where I'm still able to do a technical role, but in a commercially minded way. And then supply chain as well. So supply chain is actually our biggest track at the moment. You know, we're such a global company, and the supply chain is really crucial to what we do. So we're always looking for good people there. And so when we look at what Aspire can really offer for you, it, when it says career shaping experiences, that's really true. You know, you're put in a lot of situations that that really push you to shape your career in the way you want. So there's 4 rotations of 6 months. You can really see the full scope of the business if you want, or you can tailor those 4 rotations with your final role in mind. So if you really want to be a salesman, or you really want to be, you know, a field engineer, you can shape your 4 rotations around that. The rotations are challenging. I was just on a call with someone about this, and we were both saying that if it's boring and easy, it's pretty pointless. You won't really get anything out of it. And because it's challenging, you're pushed to learn, you're pushed to develop. You go out of your comfort zone, but in a good way. And then we also offer opportunities to, you know, solve critical challenges. Obviously, we're a big company, but that doesn't mean we don't come without our challenges. Every company has their challenges, and as we're, especially for us, as we're transitioning our business, a lot of challenges are arising. And often we're brought in, despite having little experience in the business, with that sort of fresh set of eyes to see what we can change and what we can improve. That doesn't mean we're the main decision makers, but it means we're getting exposure to them, which is fantastic for our development. And I'm aware I'm coming up to time, so I'm sure you've probably read those last 2 bullets. And yes, so final slide, I'll tell you a bit about the opportunities that we actually have on offer at the minute in the UK. We have digital technology, engineering and technology, finance, sales and commercial, supply chain, and human resources, all fantastic tracks. And their application deadline is actually at the end of October. So I really would encourage you to get your applications in. It's a fairly standard process. Just have a good CV and you'll be all right. And that's everything from me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. That was really interesting. And if I've seen there's a question in the chat already, we'll come back to that for you, Bethan, in the Q&A section. So don't worry, I'll come to that after we've heard from each of the panelists. But yeah, thank you very much, Sam. So next we've got Tim from PA Consulting. I'll pass over to you.
Sure. Hi guys. My name is Tim. I'm a mechanical engineer at PA Consulting. I've been working here for about 4 years. Before that, I studied engineering at the University of Southampton, and I predominantly focus on medical device and development, so design. And I'm going to do this without slides, so apologies, there won't be any pretty pictures, but you can go on our website. I'm sure you can find some there. So yeah, so as I said, my main focus is on medical devices, and sort of I'll go into some details of the projects I did before, but a bit about PA. So we are a consulting business. In fact, the majority of us is more of a management consultancy company. We're based in London. There's about 3,000 people plus, and do all kinds of operational, as in management, finance, all kinds of consulting. But we have about 300 or so people who are based in Cambridge, in our technology center here, where we design and develop both products and processes mainly. And so the kind of people we have here is mainly mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers, applied sciences, designers, that kind of thing. So it's a bunch of us here. And the sectors that we work in are predominantly consumer, medical, and defense, and a bit of energy. As I said, you know, often if clients come to us with problems, we'll attempt to tackle it anyway. So, you know, we spread our wings quite far, but those are our main focuses for us. And I'd say, yes, the main 2 ones are consumer, so packaging, you know, small consumer devices, that kind of thing, and then also medical, both products, but also trying to help larger pharmaceutical companies with their processes that they have to go through. For the mechanical engineers here, so we're around
Sorry,
And
Tim. Oh, you're back. There we go. Your sound just disappeared for a moment there.
yeah, I think I had a pop-up screen come up saying something about a feedback loop, but hopefully my sound's coming through all right. So yeah, in mechanical engineering, we're about 60 people here in the UK, and then around 20 people in the US. Oh yeah, that's the other thing I meant to mention. So PA is based in mainly the UK, but we do also have people in the US, the Netherlands, and the Nordics. But yeah, main centre is here in the UK. And within mechanical engineering, we have around 60 people, might be out of date because we're growing quite fast at the moment, and about 20 people in the US. Work is very much project-based. So as I said, it changes from client to client what we do. It changes how big the teams are. It changes, you could have a team that's just mechanical engineers, or you could have a very big project like I'm working on at the moment. It has software engineers, electrical engineers, but a lot of people from applied science. That's a very broad project, which includes maybe 20 people. I think that's sort of the biggest that we go to. The majority of them, where we operate best, is around 5 people or so on a project, spanning over, let's say, a couple of months, half a year. But again, that can vary. It could be weeks, or some of our projects have lasted years as well. That's where we operate most of the time. And the sort of capability within the mechanical engineering team is more or less split between products and processes. So products being long detailed design into something that's going to be made lots of time, versus processes, which is often more large design of large pieces of equipment, which might only be one-offs or two-offs, etc., to facilitate a process that a client of us is trying to achieve. So while us engineers, we sort of swerve between the two quite a bit, that's the main split, I'd say. And then going back to what I do, so I've been mainly focused in the medical sector on the design development, so worked a lot on auto injectors and drug delivery devices. That's sort of my speciality, but also done some work in larger pieces of medical equipment, either for diagnostic or for just medical investigation, etc. Often not directly but not patient interfacing directly. That's often slightly separate. Just to give you a bit more on how we split our projects and what we do on a day-to-day basis, maybe. Again, it varies a lot depending on what the project is. But I'd say we have 4 categories that a project would go through. So you start early stage, sort of brainstorming, idea creation, using first principles to figure out how we might be able to tackle a problem. Then moving on to sort of testing the critical functions, that would be phase 2, and trying to prove individual functions of a product or a process, and then move that on to phase 3, which is trying to figure out a fully working prototype, so integrating everything into one. And then phase 4 would be a full design and support to market, which often takes longer. So I think a lot of the time where we add lots of value is the first sort of 3 phases. We do also help people go to market, etc. It's just, as that's a longer project, it also becomes more expensive for our customers to keep us to do that. So as an analyst, so joining new, often you'd be joining one of these teams, one of these projects, or multiple projects at the same time. It's very much up to you to manage your own time, etc. You get a lot of freedom, but some of the things you might be doing is, testing individual bits, designing test rigs, designing the actual product, and sort of, often a bit of client engagement as well. It really depends on what the project needs at that moment in time. Some of the good sides of working at PA, you get quite a lot of responsibility early on, which definitely I've enjoyed quite a bit. It's quite a flat structure, so and there's a lot of variety of work because we take on different projects and have quite a lot of cool things to do. That also is, it's quite rewarding in that sense. I guess just a bit of balance. I give one downside, I guess, is there's not a lot of structure necessarily inherently in it. So it's very much you have to be proactive and engaged and trying to get as much out of it as you want to or need to. So that's what I'd bit of advice, to be prepared to, get stuck in and yeah, not expect to be spoon-fed every little thing. That is the majority of the thing. I'll just go onto our website itself. Maybe I'll talk about the majority of one of the annoying things when doing this stuff is the majority of our projects we can't talk about because they're client specific, but there are some that we can. So I'll talk about very briefly a project called Moy Park. So that's an ongoing development that we've got in paper-based packaging. So we're trying to come up with a process together with a client on replacing single-use plastics, basically in a sort of a dry pulp fashion. So you a bit like egg cartons are wet pulp. We're trying to basically replicate that just in dry and trying to stamp out paper-based housings, but that still have the sort of same properties as some of the plastic parts, which obviously when it comes in water and moisture, that becomes quite challenging. So that's something we've been working on for quite a while. And sort of, I think one of the things that replaced the sort of coffee pods and a few other things like that direction. And then one of the other ones, I guess that's maybe worth mentioning, is a sort of a project we did with a company in Australia to decentralize their water treatment facilities. So that's more of a process development in that sense, that we're trying to build these large scale devices, or not devices, facilities that can treat water decentralized, and so basically provide clean water cheaper. Don't know if that covers anything, but I guess we can go through it in Q&A.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tim. That was really interesting. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, but we've already got one, which we can cover shortly. But yeah, thank you very much. So last but not least, we've got Joseph from Moy Park. So I'll hand over to you just now.
Good afternoon. I do have some slides to show. Hopefully they will come up now. Can we see that? I'm going to assume that we can. So I'm Joseph. I'm a maintenance manager at Moy Park. I recently completed the graduate management trainee program that Moy Park offers, and have just secured a full-time role as a maintenance manager between Peterborough and Huntingdon. The slides that I've got are general for the GMT scheme. It is a graduate management trainee scheme, so the idea is a sort of fast track into management. And the section today is obviously about engineering. So there are engineering pathways to sort of management roles. So we'll begin with a bit about Moy Park. So when I applied for the scheme, I hadn't heard of Moy Park. I'm sure most of you haven't. They're bigger in Northern Ireland. In fact, I think they're the largest employer in Northern Ireland. But essentially, it's a poultry business in the food industry. I didn't know much about the food industry either at the time, but there's over 10,000 employees worldwide, mostly in Europe, and that's across Northern Ireland, England, and there's also sites in Holland and France. We do have a sister company or parent company, Pilgrims, who are US based, who are part of a larger company again. We process a lot of chicken. That is the main business, but we also, you'll see here that we do, some of the sites do beef, some sites do fruit pies, donuts. That's the site that I currently work at, and sort of plant-based options, and cheese as well. And so we provide around 30% of the UK's poultry production. So chances are, if you do eat chicken, you've probably had some from our sites. And we've got a far-reaching web of customers and suppliers. So as you can see on the map there, these are sort of our core locations. So based in Northern Ireland, there are a few, as well as dotted around the East Midlands, and then some across France and Holland. So this is just to show we do offer a diverse range of products for retailers, food service, and fast food. So yeah, if you eat fast food, again, chances are some of the products have come from one of our sites, and particularly if you like apple pies. So Moy Park are offering a rotational placement program. Now, I wasn't part of the placement, but if anyone here is looking, I'm not sure if it's only graduate opportunities, so I'll just mention it briefly, that they are offering a placement program, and you can do this for engineering. But what they like to do is they like to move you around to get a feel for the different departments. So I won't labor this too much, but if anyone is interested. So more in terms of graduate opportunities then, we're offering roles within commercial, finance, technical, so that would be more food related degrees, operations, which is factory based, agriculture, engineering, and supply chain. And I think they're also offering a new program in product development. So if anyone is that way inclined, there are different options, and the team are quite flexible in terms of again, if you start off in engineering but actually you discover you want to get into finance for whatever reason, I don't know why you do that, but maybe you do, or product development, then they're quite flexible in making it work for you. So in terms of the experience then, what we're looking at the moment is initially we're in the attracting stage, so really trying to get more exposure to different universities and show what we offer to graduates. Like I said, the food industry isn't too well known, but there are lots of opportunities and lots of interesting work going on. And then it's all about getting people on board. So like I said, I hadn't heard of the company, but when I applied and I went for my interview, that's what really sold it for me. So the early careers team here is very strong. They're very supportive. They're sort of, it's good to have a team dedicated to your professional development, especially for me. I found coming out of university, and I wasn't particularly sure what I wanted to do as such. I know I wanted to be engineering related. To have a team behind you is really beneficial. They work off the 70-20-10 principle in terms of your development, where 70% is sort of in-person learning or on-the-job learning rather. 20% is learning through others, and then there's a 10% formal training that's also given. So that might be completing a management qualification, which is what I did, and that's a level 5 advanced certificate, and I believe they're offering that again. And there's all different measures of support, whether it's on site or through the central team, and then eventually progressing into a leadership role. And I suppose I'm a example of that, recently completing the scheme. So criteria for applications, it is about getting future leaders within the business, getting fresh ideas, and I think the company really understands that a lot of that does come from a graduate base, in partnership with the other ways that we get people within the business. You have to be ambitious. We want people who are good communicators, degree educated, of course, self-motivated, and other things. I think the main one here is being willing to take on new challenges. The food industry is very fast-paced. I spent some time in the automotive industry as well, and I thought that was fast-paced, but this is a whole another game. But that's also what makes it so appealing. You really have to think on your feet. And then, so what I'll do is I'll tell you a bit about my process if we have time. I can't see the time. A bit later on, but so the application process, you apply online. where you'll have to do a video presentation. If you're successful, we hold an assessment center, and then you'll get your offer pretty soon after. So they do like to offer them nice and early, so you've not got to worry going into your exams and so on. Applications are now live. You can find them on our website. And yeah, so you just apply via our website and hopefully you'll hear back. So what I'd like to do is just quickly talk about the engineering program. So it's based on 2.5 years program, and it's split between projects and maintenance. So projects, you're involved in capital expenditure of new equipment into the site. This is where you tend to start off and get a bit of experience. Again, many of us won't be familiar with it. So you really get to know what we do as a business, and also get to, well, quite a bit of responsibility early on in terms of getting involved with the teams and working with the interdisciplinary teams around getting equipment to improve efficiencies, reduce waste, improve output. So it is a factory environment, and it tends to be surrounded around that. And then they also look at the maintenance side, and that's where the sort of more leadership skills come in, understanding operational efficiency and PPMs, and making sure that uptime is as high as possible. And then from there, what they like to do is you choose which aspect you preferred and really focus on that. So when you finish your scheme, you are as ready as you possibly can be to go into a managerial type role. So that's sort of on you after you've got your experience of both sides. Which one would you like to develop? And you can work with the early careers team for that. So that's sort of what's been being offered. A bit about my experience. Please stop me if I'm going on. So I started in 2019 within projects in the Grantham site. So they do coated chicken products, and I was in the projects team. And this was spending, I think I spent close to £1 million in projects, which is quite a lot of responsibility, but also you're well supported. I got to make efficiency improvements. I got to make water savings. One of my projects saved, I always get the number wrong, 25 million litres of water annually, which I was very proud to be able to do, and given the trust to do so as well in terms of leading my own project on that matter. Then I spent time at another site in the maintenance department, where it was around working with a team of shift engineers, really getting to know them, and it gave me a better understanding of what the factory requires, and sort of gave me the grounding for the role that I'm in now as a maintenance manager, to really be able to get the best out of my team and also work with them and the wider departments. So that sort of sums up my experience, and I'm looking forward to answering any questions you have, either on Moy Park or my experience later on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That was really interesting, Joseph. Thanks. So we'll move on to the Q&A. So please do start. A couple of you already have, but do start popping your questions into the chat box, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question, just use the raise hand function, and I'll keep my eyes open just to make sure that I spot you. So first of all, if you wouldn't mind just stop your sharing, Joseph, that would be brilliant. Thank you. If we go first of all to scroll to Bethan's question. So I think this was probably for you, Sam, in the first instance. So can you give an insight into the day-to-day work and projects involved in the engineering technology graduate program?
Absolutely. So firstly, I'm actually not on the engineering technology program, but as an Aspire, your day-to-day will probably be roughly the same as everyone else, despite if you're on a different track. So when you're on a rotation. You're there for 6 months, you're part of a team for 6 months. That could be in the location that you applied to. So for example, if you applied to the engineering rotation in Newcastle, you'd be based in Newcastle for 6 months. That can change. You can be based in Houston, for example. That's another main site. You know, there's Boston. There's so many places across the world that you can end up working in. So that will affect your day to day. And then every day really is different. If you're an engineer, you're probably going to be on some more project work. So for example, within my business, we sell flow cells, flow meters. The materials engineer there, for example, they'll be probably looking at new products, that we're looking to introduce. They'll be looking at the materials that are best and working with sourcing to see if we can actually afford them, working with my team to see if we're able to like sell them effectively, and if the cost we get from sourcing works out with us, so we can charge our clients the right amount and we can get the right revenue and make the right margin. So those typical tasks like that. So I can't go into much more detail because I could let something slip that I'm not allowed to talk about, or I just don't know because I'm on a different program. But yeah, a lot of your day will be spent up with your rotation, but it's probably like an 80-20 split. 80% will be your rotation, but 20% will also be being part of the Aspire program itself. So as an Aspire and as part of this global team, you'll be working with different committees that have been set up that work on different trainings, different talks from really senior people within the business. These are big decision makers, not only in the business, but in the industry as well. And you're going to have direct access to them literally on a day-to-day basis. There's easily 2 or 3 talks a week that you can listen on and be on, and you're learning from people who have fantastic experience. Apart from that, you're doing careers, things like this, outreach, there's volunteering. Every day is so different. So I hope that answers your question, even though it probably doesn't give you an exact day to day. But yeah, always varied, always mixed, always having good fun.
Sounds like that's kind of the answer, isn't it? You can't give a day to day, which is a really interesting part of this kind of role. I'm probably just expand that question just briefly to Tim and or Joseph. Bit of a day to day, maybe what kind of skills do you need to demonstrate day to day, or attributes? Maybe we could expand it to that level.
Sure. As I said, I think also, yeah, unsurprisingly, it's pretty varied depending on what project you're on. I think one of the key skills a lot of the time is more being able to adapt and learning quite quickly. I mean, a lot of the time, especially as consultants, we're working on projects that maybe we don't have as much experience in ourselves. So as especially coming straight out of uni, I guess you probably don't have experience in much at all. So you come onto a project and you're going to have to quickly get up to speed with that topic or what that project's about. So it's a case of sort of taking on board the experience that we have in a company around us. So there's a bit of networking, knowing who to ask the right questions to, etc. And then also, using the internet and a few other things to get your hand around the problem in a bit better sort of, yeah. So I think that's one of the key skills where I see people who do well are normally the people who can take on something new, be proactive about it, learn from the people around them, learn from the resources that they have available, and then not necessarily come up with an answer, but be in the position to ask the right questions. I think that's a big thing. Knowing what questions to ask is sort of half of it. And then the other thing, I guess, the other types of skills that you need is to just have some level of client interaction. As I said, we do work with clients, and you'll be from a fairly early stage, depending on what projects and how big it is, be in contact with that. So just being able to present yourself in a half decent manner, it's not too difficult. So and then in terms of the day-to-day, as I said, so I tried to allude to it, although it's very hard to pigeonhole it. You could be working on test rigs, sort of initially as an analyst, I guess, you work your way up in terms of responsibility, even on a project. You start off
Brill, thank you. Just while you're still there, Tim, we did actually have a question directly for you from
I saw that. I'll quickly so as I said, my main focus is not necessarily the energy department, and I also don't think that's 100% our focus here, but so some of the projects, I know right now, I think we've got a project on carbon capture or that sort of line. I don't know much about it. In the past, I know a project that's also on our website talks about a digital twin. So that what we did there is, for a nuclear power plant, we took their, I think a lot to do with where steam goes, etc., and how efficient they are at using their energy and moving things around. So we created a digital twin, which is basically a miniature version of that, but with lots of sensors everywhere. And we tried to sort of map out where they are losing efficiencies and where they could gain efficiencies, and sort of where things are happening that are maybe not 100% right. So it's about basically a learning process for something as big as a nuclear power plant to learn more about themselves, because they don't have that capability to do that on a large scale. You basically bring it all down, and then you try and learn from that as much as you can, and then apply those learnings to the bigger scale again. So we had a project for them to do that. So that's sort of something along the energy sector. I think that's one area where we are trying to grow more, especially when you look at sort of renewable energies. I know we've done a bit around sort of electrical cars, etc., but a lot of that ends up being more the London sort of management consultancy side of things, more so than some of the Cambridge-based technology development things, because a lot of those companies have their in-house design teams that can do that kind of stuff.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful stuff. So we've got a question here from an international student. So can your companies sponsor international students who will require sponsorship for a visa?
Unfortunately not, no. So we don't sponsor, as far as I'm aware. It's the short answer, I'm sorry.
I think it's something that we're looking into but aren't currently set up for. I wouldn't let it dissuade you from applying. Just make a note of it on the application, and it's something that the early careers team are looking to expand into, because we recognize where the value of different diverse ideas bring to the business. So don't let it dissuade you by all means.
Yeah, we don't offer sponsorship. If you already have the right to work in that country, then by all means work away. But with our business, and especially with the Aspire program, the opportunities aren't limited to the UK. Literally opportunities throughout APAC, Manati. Sorry, my team's just going on in the background if you can hear that. But yeah, all the Americas as well. So I don't know which country you're from, but in your home country, the chances are there'll be an Aspire opening there. So by all means, apply there.
I would just add on to that as well, for any international students, do have a look at the graduate route visa as well, that you can apply for yourself, and that can give you the right to work for up to 2 years in the UK. So there's information about that on our website as well. So so do take a look at that. Brilliant. That from the same person, but a bit of a different question. How important is it for students who are applying for your graduate roles to have internship experience, if at all?
I think.
I'm going to take that one, Joseph.
Yeah, I think personally, it was beneficial in my application. but I know of other graduates on the same program who didn't have anything prior. I think it's more about being able to relate the knowledge that you do have to the business or the industry, and then being able to talk up the experiences that you've either gathered through outside work or through your university course, which I'm sure there's a lot to talk about, and just sort of relating that to the industry would be my advice.
Yeah, I'd also say, you know, it helps a lot. I've reviewed quite a few CVs in the past, and it always helps to make you stand out. Another thing we look for is definitely some level of interest in what you're doing. You know, working in a company like this, you know, we rely heavily on people being self-motivated in wanting to work here, etc. And if you can demonstrate that you do enjoy this type of work, then that helps a lot. And having internships is one way of doing that. There are other ways. It's just harder to make it stand out on a CV. And also having something to talk about. Again, having some level of inside information from an industry, it helps. So a CV to show that goes far. But I wouldn't, you know, say don't apply if you don't have an internship. I just say it makes it easier.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it doesn't really matter. Depends on, obviously each company has its own requirements, but for me, applying to this role, I had no commercial experience at all, and I'm on a commercial role. What I do think probably swayed my application from talking to people who actually hired me is like my previous experience was all in like restaurants. There was the time I was teaching as well. But you know, from there I got working under pressure, you know, communication skills. I was working even in restaurants. I was in Canada and France. Like being part of an international company, coming from experience of working internationally is a massive bonus. So it's not an internship, but it's still highly pressurized work in a really harsh environment, where you have to develop all those really soft skills quickly. And so things like that can really also help, you know, your application. So no, internship isn't, it helps, obviously it's going to help if you've got experience in commercial or sales, it's going to help, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. I'd hope you have other good experience that you can spin and use your way to really help your application shine through. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much.
I was, yeah, it was really clear from all three of you that your transferable skills, your softer skills, you know, and technical skills, I suppose, were as valuable and as big. So if you can demonstrate that you've got the customer service skills through a part-time job, potentially, if you've got the project management, the managing sort of multiple tasks at once, if you've got that from your degree, you've got all these kinds of soft skills that you can demonstrate in different ways. So yeah, an internship's great, but it's not the be all and end all by any means. I think that's fair to say. So that's great, thank you. Conscious of time, so I have just a couple more things if no one else has any more questions. I just wondered if you could each just remind the students about the application deadlines. That would be great. So Sam, yours was quite imminent, wasn't it, if I remember rightly?
It was, yeah, it's the end of October, but I don't think the application has changed too much from when I did it. CV, make sure that it's really tight. That's the main thing that really stands out. Like Tim was just saying, he's looked at CVs. I think people look at CVs more than, you know, cover letters. So make sure your CV is really on it. Then there's a few application questions as well, which are fairly standard. Then video interview and then assessment center. So yeah, seriously get your applications in because it's really is a fantastic opportunity. And even if you don't really want to do it, good experience doing an application. So yeah, you never know what might happen.
Yeah, so our deadline is actually the 12th of December, which is obviously quite soon. I appreciate there'll be other exams and so on to prepare for, but it is good to prepare for applications as well. So 12th of December, and you can apply through the Moy Park website. for the graduate program and select which scheme you want to be part of.
In our case, I think it's even up to March, but having said that, we don't wait until then to review everything. So there's a good chance that by March, there might not be any spaces available. So I would definitely heavily recommend to do it as soon as possible. I think, yeah, we will review it on a rolling basis. And just for our graduate project program in whole, there is, we don't do a long structured grad program. We have 2 weeks of onboarding and training, etc. And then it's very much sort of occasional training, and then mainly on the job as well. So I think we have a few different start dates that we provide for that throughout the summer, leading on to sort of September, October, for starting dates to do that. But otherwise, it's pretty flexible. And I've also seen various people join as analysts maybe half a year after leaving university, etc. So I wouldn't say there is a specific time frame, but for our standard application process, get it in as soon as possible if you are considering it.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm just going to wrap up with one final question. I'm going to ask you all three panelists to keep this really brief, a sentence or two. What is your top tip for these students? If they take one thing away from this session, what is your top tip? And I'll start with Sam.
Firstly, fantastic question. Yeah, honestly, just back yourself. Imposter syndrome is really common. God knows I've had it. But just back yourself, back the skills you've learned, back what you're learning, back your experience. Yeah, just be confident in yourself. Because chances are, if you're good enough, you get the job anyway. So yeah, back yourself.
Brilliant, thank you. Tim?
Yeah, agree. Don't look at a job and think, no, that's not right for me because I don't think I'm good enough for it. That shouldn't be the attitude. Yeah, being proactive about it. So obviously getting ahead of the game and trying to figure out now rather than waiting until December, early next year sort of stage until you figure it out. But then also don't put too much pressure on, this being your first job, let's say. Making career changes these days is fairly easy. So don't think that you're committing to the rest of your life of work. So yes, do your research, but at the end of the day, I just go for more things rather than applying to one place expecting to get it and then finding that you don't.
Great, Joseph.
Yeah, no, it's hard to improve on back yourself and yeah, and not to understate how much time it can take to apply for roles. I think you do need to consider it as another module alongside your learning. I think it does require that level of input, unfortunately. But I would also say that don't be put off by trying new things. A lot of graduate applications and graduate schemes appreciate that you are going to be a graduate and not necessarily have an extensive list of experience, but you can get that in pretty much any industry you go for. So don't feel pigeonholed into certain aspects. Branch out, back yourself, and yeah, apply as much as you can.
Fab. Thank you so much to all three of our speakers. Some really good stuff there. And just coming to something like this is all part of your application process. It might not feel like it, but you'll be taking all this stuff in, and if you were to apply to any of these three companies or any others, you've picked up some really good tools. So as part of the module that Joseph talks about, you've already started it in many ways by coming to this. So thank you very much. If anyone has any specific questions that they'd like to ask our panelists individually, we will open up separate breakout rooms shortly. So just stick around, and once we've opened the rooms, you'll be able to see who's in which one, and you'll be able to just pop in. Before we finish, rather. Just a reminder that we've had quite a few sessions today, and some of you might have been to a few of them, and actually over the last couple of weeks. Keep an eye on the Careers Service website, because all of the sessions will be available on our YouTube channel in the coming few weeks, and so it's well worth just having a watch of all the other ones, and even maybe having a look at some of the ones that you might not have thought of considering as well. A reminder that if you want any support at any point, whether you are still deciding what it is you want to do and you're not sure, all the way through to interview, coaching, or anything like that, we're here to help you at the Careers Service. So make sure that you use this service as much as you need to by getting in touch with us at mycareer.ncl.ac.uk. You can also find vacancies on there where employers deliberately approach Newcastle University students like yourselves, and they're looking specifically for people like you. So make sure that you sign up for the job alerts and things like that. So I'm going to ask Abby to stop the recording while we wrap up.